Welcome back. Now, South Africa's business sector is under siege as organised crime syndicates hold the country to ransom. The country has seen an increase of the mafia-style criminal activities in the past decade, specifically targeting more and more sectors of the economy. And crime analyst Doctor Chris de Kock says that organised crime in all its various forms is on the increase in South Africa. Now, according to a United Nations study on transnational organised crime, the South African economy lost 68 billion rand before the COVID-19 pandemic and another 3 billion rand since the pandemic as a result of this illegal activity. And Public Works Minister Sihle Zikalala in June said that a unit within the South African Police Service has been set up to fight organised crime. And last week, President Cyril Ramaphosa announced a deployment of soldiers to areas where illegal miners and construction mafia are operating. Architectural professional Mandisa Pepeta and Dr. Chris de Kock join us now virtually to discuss this matter. Mandisa, Dr. de Kock, thanks so much to both of you for your time. Dr. de Kock, let me start with you. So, what are your views on President Ramaphosa's announcement of deploying the army to contain the lawlessness of the specific sectors in illegal mining and organised mafia in the construction sector?
Well, you see, I think they don't have any other choice anymore. But it's actually, I would have preferred that they strengthen the police and that they strengthen those people who are focusing on organized crime, crime intelligence, the organized crime unit, and all of those. But it seems things have gone so out of control that they now have to deploy the defense force on the Zama issue, the illegal gold mining, as well as in other areas. But actually, I think what they should have done, and this is not a new phenomena. I mean, these things developed over a decade, even more than a decade, if we look at the Zamas. So what should have been happening all the way is to develop the capacity to deal with these issues. But that's my view.
Dr. de Kock, you speak of these things having developed for over a decade. So we look at what we know at the moment, the demands of 30%, as some of these syndicates are known, the 30% mafia. They demand 30% of construction projects as a protection fee for these forums. And when did this start exactly? Can we pinpoint as a nation when this evil started to grip the country? And also, how exactly did it get out of hand?
Well, you can't pinpoint it on a specific date or a specific year. But I can remember, I was in the police. I was at the chief of the Crime Information Analysis Center. And that was a good 10 years ago. I retired and became an independent analyst 10 years ago. Basically 11 years ago, and the Zamas, for example, existed long before I left the police. I mean, that's a phenomena that we have seen the last 20, 25 years. The building mafia basically started, or these so-called building mafias, started around about that time. I would say they developed over the last 10 years.
Mandisa, if I can bring you in as an industry professional. What has been your experience in terms of what the industry has to deal with these mafia? And also, it's been reported that companies are now turning to taxi bosses for help. Is that true? What's been your experience here?
Thank you, Sakina. Our experience as the professionals is that our lives are in danger because when these criminal elements occur, we are professionals responsible for the sites and implementation of projects. And the disruption that happens on sites is not necessary because coming to the point of the SNDF being deployed, we believe that it's been coming. And over time, we know in the projects we had social facilitation, in the early 2000s up to 2008 or 2010. whereby in the implementation of the project, community will be consulted and steering committees will be established to ensure that the risk is averted and also disruptions are averted. When social facilitation stopped with the implementation of the projects, this is when these criminal elements found gaps. And right now, we know that the industry has been held at ransom by these criminal elements, and law needs to take to take its place, because we cannot afford to be held at ransom. Government right now is employing SANDF, that is short term. But long term, we need to go to the root cause, because the root cause of these have been people calling for fair distribution of opportunities at the ground level. But now with SANDF, it's short term. However, we raise a caution that there needs to be a roundtable for long-term solutions, because at the end of the day, the industry cannot be held at ransom and cannot be at standstill. As professionals, projects are at standstill, and we cannot afford that. Thank you, Sakina.
So have industry professionals been turning to taxi bosses for assistance, Mandisa?
Yes, that has happened, because every protection that you can get is warranted. But is that even necessary? As professionals, we cannot be also fighting criminals with other criminals. Not calling taxi bosses criminals, but protection that is outside law enforcement cannot be justified.
Coming back to something you said, Dr. de Kock, you said that, this is not an ideal solution, and that you would have preferred to see a strengthening of the South African police service to deal with this particular problem. Let's just expand upon that, because what exactly will the South African Defence Force members who are deployed be able to do? And looking at how these syndicates operate, what is it that they perhaps would not be able to assist with in trying to break the back of these syndicates?
Well, you see, I believe in the short term, as was just said, the Defence Force can at least guard these projects and can at least keep the criminals out. So that is all right. But you see, in the long run, with all of these mafias in various sectors of our economy, actually they are everywhere. They are in the agricultural arena, they are here in the building arena, they are in the mining, they are everywhere. There we need, the solution is actually to take the head of the syndicates out, to arrest those people. You see, unfortunately, in South Africa, we are struggling at ground level with hungry people, with masses of people who doesn't have jobs. Now, they will do anything to survive. I mean, I would have been in the same position. I would have done also anything. But the brains behind these organized crime syndicates, that is the ones that we have to focus on. So in the long term, I would say, well, not even in the long term, we should have done it for the last decade, 15 years, 20 years. We should have strengthened crime intelligence. We should not have used crime intelligence for political purposes. And also the SSA, we should have strengthened that. And they should have focused on organized crime as such. And those are the leaders. I mean, the Zamazamas, at the present moment, we are trying to arrest as many Zamazamas as possible, send them back to their countries. But we are not going to win that struggle if we don't concentrate on who is buying this gold, who buy the gold from the Zamazamas and export it to wherever.
And that's a serious question, and one that I would imagine would not be too difficult to actually follow the money on. But Mandisa, Public Works Minister Sihle Zikalala said that there had been over 200 arrests relating to the construction syndicates across the country. The DA then responded, and they said that's an over-exaggeration by government of the success rate there. As someone who's on the ground, what has been your experience? What is happening and your perception of how the fight against the scourge is going?
In terms of the arrests that have been said by the ministers, we may not have the actual data. But on the ground, the projects are on standstill. And as we rightly say, that law enforcement needs to, it is the correct time to intervene now to ensure that we stabilize the sector. But there's not much that is being visible on the projects and on the ground because projects are still at standstill. And as I said earlier, that the steering committees are the way to go because the law enforcers alone will not win this battle. The criminals that are behind this have a face and they have a name. Communities know who are behind these mafias. Therefore, a collective approach is a way to go. Arresting certain people, we don't have the data because projects are still a standstill. So as people on the ground were saying, the minister and the law enforcers are doing their bit, but it is not enough because it's currently not visible on the ground.
So to that point, where does the community then come in? Because as you say, these people are known to the communities from which they actually come from. So how are communities viewing this, or is this not particularly a strong issue for them to focus on at the moment, Mandisa?
Sakina, the approach is being proactive, not reactive. When the inception of the project hits the ground, communities need to be put together to steering committees so that they know they are central to the project. You can't bring them when the project and AK-47 are on the ground. Communities will hide. But in the inception of the project, communities need to be central so that at the end of the day, there is a formal structure with law enforcement within these steering committees that will ensure the protection of the very same community that needs to protect their own project, because they are beneficiaries. They need the infrastructure. They will not allow disruption. But community cannot be called at the time where there's danger is imminent, there's AK-47 being branded around. They must be brought in at a safe space of the inception of the project to ensure that they protect their project, they benefit from the project, not later on. Right now, if you bring communities now, that's reactive. And law enforcers are the suitable person that are trained to handle this situation. But communities must be brought at the inception of the project.
Dr. de Kock, we have about a minute, so if you could quickly just wrap it for us in terms of that holistic approach. As someone who has worked in the South African Police Service, what can be done? How can the South African Police Service now actually benefit from the deployment of the South African National Defence Force members?
I think while in the short term, the Defence Force is deployed to stabilize the situation, the police should do everything in its power to create a crime intelligence environment that can really come to the heads of all of these syndicates operating in the various sectors. That is one very important thing. And the focus should be on who is behind, the top people who are behind all of these organized crime. Because you can arrest down at the bottom, but those are only the people who are doing the dirty work. And that won't help us because there's thousands and millions of people who will just take the place of those that you arrest.
Dr. Chris de Kock and Mandisa Pepeta, thank you so much to both of you for helping us unpack some of what is happening at the moment regarding the different aspects of what has come to be known as the construction mafia and the Zamazamas, crime syndicates operating in the country. And this, of course, is what is gripping South Africa at the moment, different kinds of organized crime. And now the President, Leanne, has announced that there will be a deployment of South African National Defence Force members to try and arrest the situation.
Let's hope that does help. All right.